Fox News, Emily Compano had stunned her fellow Fox News hosts when she cheered on a mass Zoom firing of 900 employees. So now this had happened with the online mortgage company Better.com. What are they better at? Apparently they're better at firing people, at least in the worst way possible, in the most public way possible. Well done. Well done. They are currently mired in a very nasty public relations disaster. At the CEO Vishal Garg fired 15% of the company's workforce in a 3-minute Zoom call. So that video has gone viral. You want to talk about a public disaster. Look, you're going to fire people over Zoom. Zoom. What is wrong with you? The way that I think about it, first thing that came to mind when I was like, fired people over Zoom call, is somebody breaking up with you via text. I've never had the experience, but it seems super, like, I don't know, classless to do that. Now, as a result, the number of the firm's top executives have also resigned from the company, with sources telling the Daily Beast that actually more will follow. So you not only have a massive PR disaster, but also you've got, people that are inside the company that are like, oof, no, walking away on this one. This is horrible. Now, apparently this CEO is no stranger to controversy. And so, look, he had threatened partners, his former partner, I believe. And of course, there's all sorts of allegations of mismanagement and all of that. Now, let me just say that this is why worker co-ops are better. Because it seems like this guy, Garg, is very unhinged, erratic, and had actually, and this is ironic, it being on Fox News, actually perpetuated a strike in the war on Christmas, firing people right before the holiday. They destroyed people's Christmas. Again, you fired 900 people weeks before the holiday. What else do you call it? But now, we're going to go to Fox News here. This happened on Outnumbered, where Compano is absolutely filled with just glee over the fact that 900 people lost their jobs in one of the worst ways possible. Take a look.
I loved this, actually. I loved this so much. The productivity of those 900 individuals averaged 2 hours a day, even though they were paid for 8. And I understand the indelicate nature of this, but part of my role as a federal attorney when I was managing and acting director was terminating individuals, and I did it with the utmost respect and care. But I also had to do it with a lot of security measures in place. I love that for 900 people, he stayed safe, and he let them know that their theft was no longer tolerated. So for me, good riddance, and I feel bad that he's now having to capitulate to the other execs at his company and apologize for it. Sorry, guys, bye. For all of them, they're snowflakes. They're probably millennials and Zs. Yep.
Very surprising.
They need to learn work ethic.
Wow! Theft! Oh, yeah, well, we're not going to tolerate your theft, stealing from the company. You're probably just Gen Z and millennials anyway. Ugh. What a sociopath. Total sociopath. You know who would be the world's worst boss, besides this guy, apparently, Garg? Compano. He would be an awful, awful person to work for. Holy shit. Millennials, they just don't have a work ethic. That's what it is. You don't have a work ethic. Oh, really? Oh, really? You want to talk about work ethic, right? What about the ethics of being a non-shitty boss? How about that? Fuck off. What a miserable, miserable person. You're going to laugh about people that are being fired around the holidays. Literal Scrooge. That's what this is. And by the way, he wants us to believe that 15% of his entire workforce that he hired, that his company had hired, was lazy. 900 people, lazy. Oh, so lazy, and they're stealing too. Really? Where's the proof of that? Where's the proof of that? No, I'm not buying it at all. I'm not saying that there aren't lazy workers. I've worked alongside them before. But to say that the entire workforce, or 15% of it, all those people, lazy? Come on. No, not at all. In fact, we have former employees, some of them coming out in the open, some of them not, because, and here's the other thing, if they were stealing from the company, part of their, firing involved them actually getting a little bit of a severance package, right? And so I think it was an additional month or two of pay. And so, if they were stealing, if they were so bad, they're so lazy, why would you let them go with a fairly generous package? I mean, that seems very, very strange to me. It doesn't seem to add up. But now one former employee who has to remain anonymous for fear of retaliation said this, quote, "I thought I was safe. I had perfect reviews and thought I was an integral part of the team. It's a bummer because I know I worked really hard to help build up that company, and it looks like I just wasted my time." Yeah, 4 month severance package. So why would you give that, again, for employees that have worked so hard and have gotten great reviews and given a severance package, why would you then turn around after firing them in a 3-minute call and accuse them of theft and being lazy? Makes absolutely no sense. No sense at all. Now, the former employee who had worked with the company for a year and a half said Wednesday that the recent apology letter was nothing more than a PR stunt. So he had come out after this, went viral, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not sorry about firing people, but I'm sorry about the way that I did it. It was very classless. It didn't look good." Now, here's what that person said. "My big issue is I know how much I put into the company, helped building it up for him, and he didn't even address any of his derogatory comments at all. I mean, it's just a PR move. It didn't really do much for me because, I feel like he basically trashed everyone out the door. Very unprofessional. I'm just really disappointed. All the work and success that I achieved there, and then to be kicked on the way out the door is really unacceptable." Does that sound like a lazy employee to me? To you? Doesn't sound like it to me. And that's the reality for so many of these workers. In fact, there was another former employee interviewed by CNN Business and the staff, and they were just blown away by the CEO's remarks and sudden firing. Now, as ABC7 had reported, Garg had been involved in controversy before, as evidenced by an email he had sent to staff that was obtained by Forbes back in 2020. Here's what he said. This was a company email. "You are too damn slow. You are a bunch of dumb dolphins. So stop it. Stop it. Stop it right now. You are embarrassing me." That's a literal work email. What? Okay, for one, dolphins are actually very smart. So you're wrong there, factually incorrect. But that's unhinged. That person does not sound like a sane person. What is wrong with you? Wow. Now, one former employee who asked not to be identified and recently won an award for his performance at the company. So they're like, "Hey, here's an award. By the way, now you're fired later." Saying this, quote, "I got promoted, and he's out there trying to portray everyone as lazy and stealing money? That is messed up. I'd rather be broke than have whatever is going on in his head." 100%. Another employee who came out in the open this time, Christian Chapman, who was a former underwriter for Better.com. So now this guy had worked in the mortgage business for about 20 years. So he's got 2 decades of experience and was one of the 900 fired. So he also reported that he had recently completed a very positive performance review call with his manager. And wait, again, all of these employees have come out and they're like, "Wait, we got good reviews. Nobody had any problems with our work." And then just to randomly get invited in the call and then to get fired, and then not just to get fired, but to be called lazy, and then have that propagate onto Fox News, to them have those people then call them lazy and thieves. Again, that's what the word she used. Theft. "Oh, you're snowflakes, and you're stealing from the company, and you're so unproductive, and that's why you got fired." Just beyond the pale. They hate workers. They hate workers, but it gets worse. Employees also described a chaotic work culture at the company led by Garg, who again sends weirdo emails, consistently drops like F-bombs in meetings, which, look, I don't have a problem with the swearing in meetings, but again, there is a level of professionalism that you might want to maintain and good treatment of your workers. So what I'm saying, like, if you're in a meeting and you're like, oh, this effing thing, right? Really screwing us over, and we just got to work harder, stuff like that, that's fine. But then if you're in a meeting and you're like, you effing dolphin, or whatever kind of phrase anyone wants to use, you know, you're too slow, F you, F your family. Well, that's a problem. That's abusing your employees and going unhinged. And apparently, Garg is known for that kind of flying off the handle at people. Now, Chapman said he has now been through 4 different layoffs at various mortgage companies, but none as, quote, obtuse and dispassionate as this. So my read of the situation here is the guy was just looking for a reason to fire people. That's really it. He fired a bunch of people because a mortgage, and right now, understand, like, here's the thing. The mortgage industry is going through a little bit of a tough time now. Now, during the pandemic, things were great for the mortgage industry. You had a bunch of people that were refinancing. And so they're going through the refinancing their mortgages, a lot of business that had picked up, housing because people were staying home, right? Not only that, but you have, of course, big investors like BlackRock buying up all of this property, private companies buying up all this property and turning it into rentals. And so, you know, with all of that boom, you had a lot of business during the pandemic. Not anymore. It's starting to slow down. But here's the thing, right? Now, the company itself is valued at $6.9 billion. They literally refer to it as a unicorn status for this company because it was so massively successful. It's actually ranked at #1 on LinkedIn's top startups of 2021 and 2020, but apparently they don't treat their workers very well, obviously. Now, the SoftBank-backed mortgage, and this is even more of a kick in the pants. The SoftBank-backed mortgage lender announced in May that it was going public through a special purpose acquisition company, or SPAC. It's the kind of thing that is actually also funding Donald Trump's new social media venture. The day before the layoffs, the firm announced it received a $750 million in cash. $750 million in cash as part of an amended deal with the investors, according to TechCrunch. That would mean Better has $1 billion in cash. Now, did they need to fire 900 people when they're sitting on $1 billion? Not necessarily. Not that I know. But we do know it made a lot of money. Now, again, at the same time, as I mentioned, the mortgage market is starting to slow down. Interest rates are creeping back up. Less people are refinancing. And so, again, the company would eventually probably need to downsize or something. Or, maybe, I don't know, the shareholders and executives might take a little less in profit. Obviously, we knew the direction that they went into. And again, I understand that you need to maybe sometimes let people go if things start to get a little hard. But again, in this case, when you're sitting at $1 billion and you still fire people and then add the insult of literally insulting them, calling them thieves and firing them over Zoom in such a public way, it's really beyond the pale. Really beyond the pale these days. And so it's incredibly gross, super gross boss, and super gross people that are defending that. Now, that said, I've got one more video here of this discussion. And again, I focused on Campano, but what's interesting is what Kennedy had to say. And actually, it was very surprising because this had actually sort of divided the panel a little bit. So let me show you what Kennedy had to say.
If you know anyone who's been let go right before Christmas, it's an awful thing. Yeah, even in the best of circumstances, when your boss knows something about leadership and dignity and grace, it's incredibly tough. But to do that with 900 people on a Zoom call and the classless way that he did, people remember that. People will remember his company and go in a completely opposite direction, as has much of his leadership team in communications and PR, because they know he's probably a horrible person to work for, and his company is clearly a disaster.
Yeah, and I said he's about to know that because maybe he'll quit. Maybe he'll fire himself, Emily.
All right, so look, as much as Kennedy's voice is like nails on a chalkboard, she's absolutely right. She makes a great point. Yes, terrible person to work for, completely classist in the way that they've done it. So I agree. And what's interesting is, as I said, when you start to lose half the panel on Fox, you know you're doing something wrong defending this. But Campano, understand that she absolutely loves that. Because here's the thing. She has a legitimate hatred for working people, especially younger people who, as I mentioned, were not the only people fired. I mean, again, you had people who were in the industry for decades, they were let go, and these are people, again, who had glowing, excellent reviews and had not done anything wrong. But again, Campano couldn't resist because her first inclination was to support the authoritarian. And in this case, an authoritarian is the CEO. It doesn't matter what CEO it is, doesn't matter the company, that's still an authoritarian position. That's just the way the modern companies are structured. Even if, you know, the company that you work for or the boss might be fantastic, the boss is still an authoritarian position. Simple as that. Nonetheless, she also sided not only with the CEO, who in this case was massively wrong, but also she decided to side with money. As usual. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.